content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, sensitive topics, and explicit language that may be triggering, offensive, or sensitive subjects to some viewers and listeners. Discretion is advised. The purpose of this podcast is to explore and discuss true crime cases for entertainment and educational purposes only. This podcast does not intend to glorify or sensationalize crime, but rather aims to analyze and understand the complexities of human behavior in the criminal justice system. We encourage listeners to approach this content with empathy, critical thinking, respect for the victims and their families. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. I'm your host, Winnie Schrader. Well, this book came across my desk. We've had Burl on before, but this case, Where Murder Lies, I could not find anything on the internet. That's how closed off this case is. I couldn't really find any pictures, articles, anything like that. But this story, as grandiose as the case is, it's shocking that nobody's ever heard of it. So I wanted to bring Burl on and co-author Frank Girardot, who wrote the book and investigated this case and worked along with Kelly Lee to kind of open this case up to say, hey, I think you got the wrong guy here. So I'd like to welcome Burl and Frank to the show.
Hey, well, thanks for having
us. Show. Okay, so yeah, this case. I couldn't even find the name of the school teacher. That's how.
Yep.
It's like trying to find Bigfoot with this case. It's amazing how I couldn't find anything. So, I guess
that is not an accident.
It's not because it's a cover up.
Accident.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, what?
There was a time where if you even asked questions, you would get in trouble.
Really?
Don't ask. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
In fact, we were begged not to write this book.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. By who?
By attorneys for some of the people that are, that we've written about. They were very,
really?
Adamant. Please don't write this. You shouldn't write this. Find something else.
Wow. Okay, well, let's just start from the beginning because, like I said, trying to find information, I have nothing to go off of. And you guys obviously investigated the heck out of this thing because you guys were opening up doors that people shouldn't be opening, obviously. So, what can you guys get from the beginning of this case?
Sure, Burl. Why don't you start?
I'll start. Okay. I met Kelly Lee, one of the very first people I met when I came to Los Angeles in November of 2003, and I became friends with her and her husband. And a few years later, we're chatting, and she pulls out some trial transcripts, court documents. She says, "You're a true crime writer. I bet you'd be interested in this." I said, "Well, what is this?" "Well, it's a whole big thing with the Russian mob and confidential informants. And this kid that I knew was sent to prison for murder. And I know it would never occur to him to kill anybody." Says, "Take a look at this." Well, I took a look. I called Frank and said, "Frank, I think we got a hot one here. It's a hell of a story." And he agreed. And we didn't realize how much work and time it was going to take to investigate this. Our friend Ron Shepsick said, he'll spend 3 months to 4 months, maybe 6 months investigating a true crime story. Frank, how long did we spend investigating this one?
6 years on this.
6 years?
Yeah. We started in 2019 before the pandemic with a stack of documents. And we probably could have written something with the court transcripts and other documents that we had. But the thing is that we had to. It's like an onion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at those court transcripts and the documents, well, you can see that it's an onion. But you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't even know how many layers there are until we, peel it all back. And so that's really what we did. We said, okay, the Russian mafia might be involved here. Who are some of the players? And how did they get to the point where there's a murder being committed? And for us, it was very important to, detail the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think, as you noted early on, Winnie, there's not a lot of documentation. In fact, on the internet, there's one sentence about the death of the victim.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Not a newspaper story, not any other true crime books, no obituary. So we really had to figure out who these people were. And what we learned was that surrounding this case, there's a whole universe of crime, corruption, deception, and kind of like the noir stuff you expect might reside behind the scenes in Hollywood. But the more we scratch the surface, the more it just kind of, helped us peel back the layers of this onion. And
one of the things that we talked a lot about while doing this is that when people reading this, we'll start off to tell them a story, and they'll go, "Well, what the heck does this have to do with the murder?"
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to keep reminding people, "Okay, we're going to tell you something. It really has something to do with this. Trust us." Because the more we investigated, it was like these tributaries or, bizarre connections. And as Frank was saying the other day, sooner or later, it clicked, boing, that all of these disparate stories were connected, that there was a commonality beneath the surface that connected all these really bizarre cases, strange stories over a span of many decades that culminated, more or less, with this fellow being murdered in West Hollywood and a teenager being sent to prison.
Right, because it's like how do you connect the Russian mob with a school teacher and a very shy a kid who has some disabilities? It's like, how do you connect the dots with that? It's like trying to compare
That's
apples
why
and
it took us 6
oranges.
years to find all the dots.
I guess so. But how did who is Kelly Lee, and how was she? Is this something she just picked up in a newspaper and saw?
No. When Jimmy Kitlas got off the bus from Riverside Youth Center, wherever the heck that was, down by Lake Elsinore, he aged out of the foster care system. They just gave him a bus ticket to West Hollywood. Goodbye.
Oh,
And he's wandering the streets, and he winds up meeting her. She was, at that time, had been a runaway from where she lived originally, and was, as I said, she was an unlicensed pharmaceutical supplier, and hedonistic youth on the streets of Hollywood.
gotcha.
Yeah. And she became his surrogate mother. He was so childlike that she goes, "Oh, this poor kid, he's going to get eaten alive." So she did everything she could to teach him, to protect him. But the original short attention span theater, was severe ADD, and really shy, couldn't concentrate on things for more than a moment. And as she said, he had a lot of sexual energy, he needed a girlfriend. Well, he got one and got her pregnant. So there's those two of the three people who were last to see the victim alive. Two of them was this couple, Jimmy and his girlfriend, Audrey, who was about 7 months pregnant.
Okay.
And the third person was their friend and benefactor, a Russian mobster known for identity theft and bank fraud named Mark ITF. And he saw them coming.
Oh,
And that's
gotcha.
where I'll let Frank become something from there.
Well, I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, Jimmy was in the homeless shelter system, and that's how he wanted to, feel more manly about himself. He wanted to, protect his pregnant girlfriend, and felt that the best way to do that would be to, get connected with people who were in crime.
Gotcha.
And so he became a sort of pawn.
Yep.
He was, asked to write bad checks, asked to cash bad checks, involved in, these, I would say, petty penny ante crimes throughout Los
Mhm.
Angeles that were frequently, broken up by the cops. More than once they were caught at a
Almost daily.
bank, or in a hotel trying to do stuff. And even on one occasion, this trio was arrested at a hotel, and when the police went in, they found stacks of check writing equipment and fraudulent type of materials that would
Oh,
only be used by people who were committing bank fraud.
gotcha.
But you know, even though they interrogated Jimmy and his girlfriend and Mark, nobody paid any price for it, and they were back, doing it within hours.
With good
Um,
reason.
yeah, and the other thing that's happening here is, Jimmy's really motivated to find a place to live,
Uh-huh.
and Mark says, "Listen, I can hook you up with an apartment over here on Sierra Bonita in West Hollywood. All we got to do is kick out the guy that's living there now." Well,
Okay.
that guy ends up being a murder victim, and
Oh.
We haven't told our beloved host here one of Mark's secrets that Jimmy didn't know about. And
Burl.
that was, in addition to being a scam artist, an identity theft guy, and in the Russian mob, he was also an informant for the FBI, the DEA, and the Pasadena Police Department. He was a
Good lord.
snitch, a confidential informant, and a registered agent of law enforcement.
Oh my gosh. And he's
That's one
and he's
reason why he keeps getting arrested, and the next day he's right back at it.
yeah, because they want him on the streets giving them
Yeah.
information.
Right.
But then he's roping this kid into this life of crime like this. Well, you would
Well,
think that
there was a specific crime he wanted this kid tapped for, because in the Russian mob world of Los Angeles, Mark was just this, kind of low level. Gee,
Mhm.
he's so unbright. He uses fake ID to go to a casino. I mean, duh, you don't do that.
And gets caught.
Yeah, immediately, and then
So he
does it
wasn't a
again.
smart guy.
However, his uncle, who has the same last name, is exactly the opposite. He's famous enough to be on like FBI maps of important crime figures,
Oh my
and
god.
he's known for some of the wildest, most daring and bizarre scams and crimes in the modern American criminal history. And he's also known to be very gregarious, kind,
Mhm.
generous, and with a soft spot for underprivileged kids. And it
Mhm.
just so happens that his uncle, Meyer, had been arrested and convicted for a massive attempted gold scam against our government
Oh my
and attempted to smuggle massive amounts of MDMA in from Mexico and had gone to federal prison. Well, so Mark and his other uncle say, how can we get dear Meyer out of prison?
Mhm.
Well, pick one from column A, two from column B. It's frequency. It's almost like a menu if you're a snitch. You bring us enough of a crime, we'll let him out. Murder, you solve a murder, yeah, your uncle will get out of prison.
Oh,
Best way to
so
solve a murder is arrange it.
well, yeah, arrange it and oh my gosh. So
So
he
now
was
you're
setting
beginning to
up?
see what's going on here.
Oh god. So why would they give him a deal like that? That doesn't make sense. Like if you can have a
Oh, that's
crime
the way it works. In fact, we asked Tony Serra, who's a very famous attorney up in San Francisco, who has years of experience dealing with this. And I asked him point blank, I said, sir, we know that a paid witness is against the law. What's the difference between a paid witness and a confidential informant? He said, absolutely nothing.
Oh
The
wow.
confidential informant is getting something out of it. They're obviously a criminal. They're involved in the crime. They may have even planned it. But what they're getting is a reduced sentence or freedom for themselves or for somebody else. There's really no difference.
And it's not super explicit where, it's in writing or anything, but it's the spoken rule of the
Unspoken.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kinda like under the table thing, like, "Yeah, if you do this for me, well, might benefit you in the
In
long
fact,
run."
there are rules. There are written rules, but people don't obey them as far as
Yeah.
dealing with confidential informants. Oh, they can't break the law unless it's in writing what law they're going to break, and they can only do it for 90 days, and it has to be tied to a particular investigation. Nonsense.
And these rules are, comprise pages and pages and pages of text that are, codified in federal law. But, that's the reality. But in practicality, at least the informants that we wrote about here are pretty much, operating with impunity. And able to get involved in some crazy stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it sounds like it. Now, with the murder of the school teacher that he was supposedly committed and charged, and now he's in prison for. How was she just like a random
Is a he.
victim?
He was a he.
Oh, it was a he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Was he like a random victim, or was he tied in with possibly purchasing narcotics from these people? I mean, how does a school teacher get involved with Russian mob schemes and drug dealing? It's like, how do I connect these dots? I feel like I'm trying to put a puzzle piece together with no picture.
It's a tight-knit community.
Okay.
And the thing is that the night that everybody converged on his apartment, he thought he was going to be able to have sex with Audrey, Jimmy's pregnant girlfriend, and was making moves on her and being promised probably that he would be able to have sex with her, and that sort of that interaction between him and Audrey enraged Jimmy somewhat.
At least that was the story.
That's the story that they're certainly pushing out there, and that's how he gets caught up in it. I mean, he thinks he's going to get that in exchange for letting these two teenagers stay at his apartment, he's going to be able to have sex with the young woman.
Wow. Ugh.
And he's a Russian immigrant also. That was citizen, I believe. And Mark apparently lived across the street, down the street. They knew each other. In fact, Audrey had met this fellow before. She called him Sasha. She'd met him previously. She knew who he was. So they all kind of knew each other, some to a great degree, some not to at all. And just seems that Mark picked him as we can use this guy.
Yeah. Well, so who actually committed the murder on the school teacher? Was it Jim? Oh, I mean, was Jimmy there at the time of
That's
death?
like asking who killed OJ's ex-wife.
Yeah.
The answer is this: is that both men were tried for the murder, and the jury, and in fact, Jimmy even at one point was worried he was going to face the death penalty. And at the end of it, Jimmy was convicted and Mark wasn't. And what happened at trial is probably as shocking as anything. Jimmy and his family hoped that they would be able to use the fact that Mark was a confidential law enforcement source as a way of showing that he was entrapped into committing this crime. And the judge said, no, you can't do that. And in fact, the prosecutors brought the DEA in to make sure that bit of information would not become a matter of public record.
And they didn't tell Jimmy or his grandparents, who were basically his guardians, his parents, who kept saying, use the entrapment defense. If you look at what the law is in California on entrapment, this checked all the boxes. He would have had one heck of an entrapment case, and the law would be on his side in that situation.
Right.
But they kept saying no. And there was one person who was on the legal team who also kept advocating for the entrapment defense, saying it's obvious. And that person was fired. And Jimmy didn't know why. It was because the prosecutor had gone to the DEA and the FBI, and they all went to the judge and said, suppress this information. Do not let the jury know that this guy was an informant, that he's law enforcement. But without that piece of information, it's impossible for the guy to have a fair trial. That's the most important thing to know.
Right, because the whole purpose of him being there was because he was set up by an informant because he was promised, to get.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that is so corrupt. No wonder there's
yes.
nothing on the internet.
How often does this go on? It goes on all the time.
Oh, that is sad.
When I say all the time, I mean every day.
A new year is rapidly approaching, which means it's time to stop letting last year's chaos rent space in your head and in your heart. This is the season of new everything. New life, new love, new confidence, new jobs, and new chances to finally become the best version of you that you've dreamt of. And the universe? Well, it's practically standing on your lawn with a giant cosmic boombox blasting messages meant just for you. You just need the right conduit. And that's where Love and Lotus Tarot with Winnie Schrader comes in. Winnie doesn't just read cards. She translates destiny. He helps you see the opportunities lining up, the patterns trying to repeat, and the new beginnings that are already forming behind the scenes. Right on the heels of New Year comes Valentine's Day, which means love is in the air, or at least it should be. And if your love life has been more like a blue screen of death error, romance not found, don't panic, my friends. The universe is already trying to nudge you in the right direction. The cards are ready to be shuffled, your story is ready to turn the next page, and your next beginning is closer than you think. Book your reading now, or better yet, buy a reading for a friend. Visit lovelotustarot.com and start the year the way it deserves, with clarity, confidence, and maybe even finding the love that you deserve. That's lovelotustarot.com. Your destiny awaits.
Wow.
You've connected the dots.
Yeah, and that is very scary to know that, at any point, not, even if you don't even really know the people you're associated with, that this could happen to you and you're put in a position, all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're being charged with murder and you're like, how did this even happen? You know what I mean? It's so convoluted, and to know that they are covering this up and suppressing stuff for him to get a fair trial, they're hiding
it's
this
impossible.
Stuff. That is insane.
And Tony Serra, who thankfully contributed the big crescendo commentary of the case for us, the attorney who's an expert in this, he said it has gotten even worse. The number of types of snitches or confidential informants has multiplied. There are all these different classifications of them now. And usually if his defense attorney said, we insist on using the entrapment defense, there was a good chance the prosecution would have dropped the entire case rather than reveal the identity of the confidential informant. On a personal note, my daughter was asleep in a truck that she and her boyfriend had here in LA night. And a guy with a crowbar smashes out the window and attacks her. Brutally attacks her. Probably could have killed her, didn't. Boyfriend awoke and, they got rid of him, but of course they called the cops. They know who the guy was. And the police said, we can't prosecute him.
Why?
Why? He's a confidential informant.
Oh my gosh. So they can just go around just smacking people with
Oh, yeah,
crowbars and do whatever
she
they
used to have
want.
a lovely full set of teeth.
That doesn't even make sense. How is that a public safety if you got some guy that just thinks he has full
Well, they
access
think
to do
they
whatever he
full
wants?
immunity to do whatever they want, even though the law says they can't, but they do. Because they said, well, yeah, but he helped us arrest this major drug dealer, although he's also a drug dealer. They helped us, find this counterfeiter when he's also a counterfeiter.
Mm-hmm.
As Tony Silver said, they instigate the crime and then remove themselves from it and get credit for solving it. They're notoriously perjurious and can't be trusted. And yet, law enforcement relies on these people. They're not whistleblowers. They're not honest people who uncover something crooked. They're crooks who rat
Right.
out other crooks. Classic thing is in drug cases, for example. Let's say that you're a real bad, nasty drug dealer. Not a nice guy. You're a bad one, right? Selling fentanyl cut speed to people who are dropping dead. And we come and we say, you give us the names of 3 other people, we'll let you go. And so you give us the names of 3 nice, honest, ethical dealers who are selling stuff and wouldn't put fentanyl in it if you paid them. Right?
Yeah.
So the real bad guy keeps going, and the ones that you'd be much safer if you had a drug issue, they're the ones who go to prison.
That is just awful.
I know.
Awful.
We have a court system, but we don't have a justice system, is what it boils down to. But
Right.
solving this mystery, hopefully, we would like the readers to know it is a fascinating story. And Frank and I worked really hard on it, folks. And we are thrilled to say we have gotten some wonderful, excellent reviews from other writers in the true crime genre who go, wow, you guys really knocked it out of the park with this one. Kelly Drobin said she was going to, you spend like a week or so to read it. She didn't stop. She just kept going all night until she finished it. I said, wow, you guys really did it. So we feel good after these years that hopefully people will buy it and people will go, wow, and then be upset.
It's polished and there's so much there. Because if we just focused on the crime and the outcome, it might not be a whole lot of story. But the underlying things that are going on, the mafia operations, the gas tax theft, the gold theft, the MDMA trafficking, and the amount of money involved. And in fact, even there's a conspiracy to threaten a reporter with the Los Angeles Times that's operating on the periphery of this whole story, and that became a national a news story. What these guys did associated with our folks is they sought out this Los Angeles Times reporter who was writing about actor Steven Seagal. They threatened her by putting a dead fish on her windshield and saying, "You're next." Ew. And she, poor woman, became so worried about, what could happen to her. That, it's sort of like, that was like kind of like the butterfly that, created this unraveling of things that led to the arrest of Meyer ultimately. And when Meyer was arrested, it led, Mark to try to figure out a way to get him out by, connecting with Jimmy. So you can see these like threads just going through the story. And as Burl said earlier, it's like, well, what is this? And then when you get to it, you go, oh my gosh, it's all tied up in a nice, tidy ball.
Yeah. That's why you mentioned this thing about chaos theory that a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil causes a tsunami in Alaska or whatever it is. And Frank writes this good introduction to the section we have on Daniel Patterson. They say the butterfly in this case is this guy Daniel Patterson, we've never mentioned before, who lives somewhere else, and it simply and his story is fascinating. And he winds up with Robert Vesco, who was tied in with Richard Nixon, and that whole thing. And yet he winds up through his bizarre series of events in this gold scam with Meyer ITF, Mark's uncle.
Wow.
But it's like, how do you get there? This is we every time we launch a new story, we got to tell the reader, no, we just want to let you know this is going to be important. I know it sounds like it has nothing to do with it. Trust us.
But it's a storytelling technique, right? Like when we're writing this, I don't want to just drop people in a room and say, okay, they're now buying stolen gold, right?
Mhm.
I mean, to me, and I think for readers, you want to know how these people got into this room to concoct a plan to steal gold from the U.S. government, and then
Right.
right, and because one of these men is a big player in our murder story, and
Yeah.
so that's what like a lot of this uncovers, and it's really cool. The gold scheme is basically putting purchase orders to a gold manufacturer by pretending you're a government entity, in this case working on the space shuttle, and they needed gold foil. And so they filled out a purchase order. They were here where I live near Pasadena, California, and said they were with Caltech and JPL. So the gold company, loaded up a truck full of gold and drove it out to a rundown apartment where a guy in a lab coat who identified himself as Dr. Charles Schultz accepted the shipment. And they would take the gold down to the jewelry market here in LA and get it melted and sell it.
What I like is they had a post-it note on the rundown apartment door that says "Nuclear Reactor Lab." Post-it note on the door.
Oh my God. This sounds like a movie, like a
I know, it's
National Lampoon
just
movie.
bizarre.
Oh.
They probably would have gotten away with other gold scams that were almost as effective, but he pretended to be Sergeant so-and-so and he misspelled Sergeant.
Oh,
and that's how they got caught. Yeah.
Oh, that's how they got caught, was they misspelled?
Yeah.
And also they put in
God.
a purchase order saying we'll send you a check, for the gold, but they had stopped taking checks a year or two earlier, and everything was done by electronic transfer. So
and
that
anybody
was the
that was
tip-off.
actually buying gold would have known that was, so
Yeah.
So the FBI shows up and arrests these guys.
Well, how much is it worth the FBI and the DEA and the CIA when they have these informants? How much information are they given by these guys, and how can you trust what they give you? Because you always see it in mob movies that they want to press the guy to be an informant for them, so he agrees to get shorter time, but he just feeds them BS. So it so how does the FBI and DEA and that know that the information that they were given by this guy to get, less time or get somebody out of prison was even, honest and truthful information that they were
Sometimes they
getting?
don't care.
I would also say sometimes they just throw them the small fish and, keep them fed and, and maybe even reverse manipulate, like, I got to get rid of somebody. How can I do it? Oh, well, I'll create an informant situation that, leads to my rival's demise. I mean, there's probably, any number of scenarios where the criminals can use judo on their situation as informants to turn it to their advantage. And I mean, I think that's ultimately what this book is, right? Is that the informant who's being leveraged by the federal government ultimately leverages the government to get his uncle out of the hot water.
Yeah, the uncle gets out right away. Bang, zoom, it worked perfectly. Then he went on to become quite a player in the poker tournament world. What a bunch of money playing poker. Championed a school, more or less, for disadvantaged kids, kindergarten through 12 or something, that operated for quite a while, much to the benefit of the community. And then also did some other bizarre scams that he didn't get arrested for. But, and the thing is that Meyer, the uncle, hated snitches, hated confidential informants, and
Yeah.
even is alleged to have tried to have one killed several years ago. And now here, his brother and his nephew become confidential informants to get him out of prison.
Yeah, did he change his mind on that? Does he like informants now?
Well, I don't know.
We don't know. We'd like
He
to
just
know.
told us, please don't write this book. Please don't write this book.
Oh gosh. Yeah, and you always see that in like TV shows and movies when it's involving mobs and stuff like that. The funny thing is though, it seems like every time they showcase a Russian mafia, that it's always a head guy, and he always has a dumb son that does dumb crap all the time. I don't know why with Russian mafia movies, they seem to do that all the time. And, but yeah, to know that how delicate things are and how your life hangs in the balance when you're roped in with people like this and how easily disposable you are. You
Mhm.
think that you have a leg up in this game, and next thing you know, you're in prison
No,
and you're being marked for
that's
something.
what Jimmy says. And he walked into a situation, he walked into a scenario he believed at the time was just this nice Russian mob guy really liked him and was interested in his life. Is that in
Mhm.
retrospect, just it's like Audrey and I walked into a play that we were cast in before we ever knew it. He saw us
Yep.
coming and went, "Here we go. Here's our
Yeah.
people."
That's a
Uh,
shame.
it's a tragic story. It
Mhm.
really is. Uh,
So, is Jimmy still in prison? Like, have you had any
he's out. He got out on parole after 20 years.
Okay.
He's married. He is reunited or reunited now with the daughter born from Audrey, his ex pregnant girlfriend. The
Okay.
pregnant girlfriend and the daughter are estranged, and Jimmy hasn't seen the ex girlfriend since he was sent to prison. But he and his daughter are close now.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. And
And
has he
it turns
rectified his
out
life?
it
Huh?
turns out that Jimmy is brilliantly gifted in languages. He can learn
Oh,
any language, bam, so fast your head spins. He can speak like about 10, 11 languages fluently, including like
wow.
Hindi and
Oh
Mandarin
my
and,
gosh.
Native American languages. And, any language he can learn incredibly fast. And he's pretty
Wow.
much taken control of his ADD without medication, although it's still a challenge for him. But he's
Mhm.
obviously brilliantly gifted
Yeah.
being able to learn languages so quickly. He's also has learned everything that has to do with the construction trade because while he was in prison. And
Oh,
so he's got a good life, a good wife, and a daughter, and he's going to be moving back to take care of the family ranch down there by Lake Elsinore. His grandmother's still alive. And
wow.
he and
So
Kelly are back in contact. They keep in contact on the internet now.
oh, that's
That,
good.
that's
It seems
great.
like
Yeah.
he's reformed his life and
Oh, yeah. Actually, the prison, as unfortunate as it was that that's where he went, under the circumstances, it may have been the best thing in the long run because it kept him from a life of crime, kept him from
Mhm.
being further exploited. And he's a wonderful guy with a good
That's
future
awesome.
ahead of him. It would sure be nice if he could get this conviction expunged due to the strange circumstances. And
Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting because I talked to him this morning
yep,
at length, and he said to me, "What do you?" He just read the book. He said, "Wow, uh, after reading this, I'm wondering like how I can, go about getting this conviction expunged.
Right.
And he's a really good guy. He's still on, he's out of prison. He's still on parole, and he'll be on parole until probably at least May. And he works at a homeless shelter in San Francisco from 10 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning, and sees some pretty awful things. But his life is significantly different, I think, as a result of this, obviously, than it might have been had he, continued just being a check, writing checks, bad checks, cashing bad checks, selling meth to his buddies at the internet club. Might have been a totally different situation for him.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably could have been buried already. You know what I mean? Like, he could have been killed if he would have continued that type of lifestyle. So maybe, it sucks, but maybe going to prison was a blessing for him, and that got him on the right path to start learning stuff. I mean, I took Spanish class for 3 years, and I still can't say a full sentence in Spanish.
¿Cómo está usted? Muy bien, gracias. ¿Y usted?
Yeah,
My
it's just
sister
like
has a green pencil.
I can barely speak English half the time. I get mush mouth. I'm like blah, blah, blah. But yeah, trying to learn a new language, and somebody who has severe ADD, ADHD, any type of learning disabilities, that is a hard thing to get through. And I get what but he was obviously motivated to get his life right and to do something. So kudos to Jimmy for doing what he did and using that time wisely. So now that he can live a better, more productive life outside of prison versus in
I would
prison
really
or
like
dead.
to see his cause taken up
Yeah.
by people, because it really would be a justice for him to have this murder conviction expunged from his record, to the fact it's impossible for him to get a fair trial with the information that Mark was a confidence informant suppressed. But that would be great for him.
Did you know that radio just got a little extraterrestrial? That's right, Dave Schrader is back on radio with the Paranormal 360 every Sunday evening, 7 to 9 p.m. Central on WCCO AM 830, an Odyssey station. Just download the Odyssey app and look for the WCCO logo, follow the station, and listen live. That's the Paranormal 360 on WCCO AM 830, an Odyssey station.
Hello, Darklings and my fellow mind travelers. This is Mark Allen Lanou, the Gemini Mind. Come take a journey with me through this place we call life by picking up a copy of my book, Reality Was Once the Tapestry of the Dreamer. Available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon online. You can find the links also on my website, markallenlanou.com. Chock full of stories about organized crime, the paranormal, my music career, NASA, and more. So go pick up your copy, and you all rock. Indeed.
I'd love to see it happen. And mostly I'd love people to buy the book, read the book, and then deal mentally with their perception of, oh my God, what goes on in the real world. We tend to be naive. One thing of being a true crime author taught me was I'm not naive.
Right. You can't, because you never know. I mean, you don't know other people's intentions. You don't know what's behind the words. So it's like you have to really, really kind of weed through all the muck just to get the facts and to get the
I'll
things
tell you a
that you
little
need.
brief tidbit here. I learned early on not to do a true crime investigation exactly where I live.
No.
I was living in a small town, and this local policeman comes to my house and threatens me.
What?
And he thought, because I was investigating a true crime case in my local city, he thought I was uncovering his corruption, which I knew absolutely nothing about. My daughter did, however.
Oh, your daughter
My
did?
daughter, yes, my daughter knew all about his corruption and knew that he had taken drugs from the police station locker to give to his mistress, because his mistress's daughter worked with her in a restaurant.
Oh
And so
my.
she knew. I didn't know any of this. The guy comes to my house, knocks on the door, and he starts suddenly threatening me and says, "Can my drug dog sniff your car? Because if your drug dog has a license, it can drive my car. What's your problem?"
You got a warrant?
Yeah, he
Oh.
got a dog training license. Uh, and he says, "Yo, if uh, if I come crashing in to so and so's a place where you've been visiting, the place I've been visiting was a fellow who had all the trial transcripts and the
Mhm.
letters from the attorneys about the case I was investigating. It just so happens this cop had busted the same guy a year earlier on marijuana charges or something. And, there's all these pieces again floating around that are somehow connected. And the guy thought I was investigating the police officer
Oh.
and not the case. Well, it turns out someone popped him anyway for his corruption and he got fired eventually. It wasn't
Oh,
me.
good. Well,
But
we need to get those type of cops out of the system and not not being able to call themselves a detective or a police officer because that's where I mean, that is the key that opens that door to corruption when it comes to dealing with organized crime
yeah,
and things like
and
that.
yet one of the best homicide detectives that I ever had the pleasure of knowing and working with. I followed the case. I didn't write about it. I followed the case, and there was testimony that they had this fellow under surveillance for X amount of hours.
Mhm.
And then I listened to all the testimony. I go, wait a second. And I went to the detective after the guy's already sent to prison. I said, I found a discrepancy that the jury didn't notice.
Mhm.
If fellow had been under surveillance all this time, you would have watched him move the body. You would have seen him dig it up.
Right.
And
And
he
there's
just
no
looked
record of the surveillance with him doing that, right?
right. And
Ah, okay.
he just looks down at the floor, very embarrassed that I caught something that for some reason went totally unnoticed. He said, well,
Mhm.
at least we closed the case, which means an innocent guy was sent to prison for this
Ah,
murder,
eh,
but they closed the case.
that's so irritating. That is so irritating that it's like, that
And
isn't
yet, this same
justice, guys.
detective had done absolutely fabulous work in
Mhm.
solving some of the most difficult homicide cases ever in the state and devoted himself for years to solve one of the longest cold cases in the history of the state and solved it, murder case. Fantastic work. And yet,
Mhm.
even he, at one time, succumbed to that. Well, at least we closed the case.
Wow. That's that's so harsh to know that it just could be that simple and your life is over. Oh, the case is closed. Nothing
Yep.
more to say here. Move along.
Well, King, this case is closed. Woof, woof.
Oh,
Sergeant Preston of the
man.
Yukon.
Now, with Jimmy's case, is there any type of movement on trying to, try and appeal this or anything like that to help kind of get the ball rolling to get it expunged off of his record? Are there anything that my audience can do other than buying the book? Is there a website that's dedicated to this so it has information and updates on what's going on with Jimmy?
So we just published the book, and
Mhm.
I think Jimmy, who's just recently out of prison, is just kind of coming to grips with the whole
Okay.
scenario. I,
Yeah.
I'm sure that if somebody wanted to set something up and and work with him to figure out what his options are, he'd want to do that. I can certainly imagine that.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't wanna live with a murder rap on my record if I didn't do it and,
Well, but
or
I think the thing is, let's be clear. He and
Takes
Mark were both.
responsibility.
He takes
Mhm.
responsibility, and he and Mark were both in the room when it happened.
Yeah.
I think that any kind of expungement would have to come from the fact that all the evidence wasn't presented forthrightly to a jury, and they were
Yeah.
prevented from hearing some of the the circumstances that led up to the killing.
Right. Yeah. And we don't even know at the time. I mean, could he have been threatened, his life threatened if he doesn't do it or assist in it?
Well, he was threatened. Like, why don't you go up there and knock this fellow out? What's the matter? Aren't you man enough to do it? Really
Yeah.
pressured.
Yeah.
Which is one of the symptoms of entrapment. Is were you pressured? Were you threatened by the agent of law enforcement?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
You-
and to know, I mean, obviously knew what these this mob and all these connections, what they're capable of doing.
Oh, yeah.
So in that sense, that could have just drew enough fear for him to just say, I better do what I'm told to do, or I better do what they're asking me, otherwise I'm gonna get it.
Well, of course, and then you have the classic thing where the sheriff's office tells Jimmy, if you don't confess to having killed this fellow, we're going to charge your girlfriend.
Oh no! Oh, of course.
That is the
she's
classic,
pregnant and
the classic way of getting a false confession. In fact,
Yep.
in Los Angeles County, there's a fact for you. In Los Angeles County, every month there are a minimum of 1,000 false confessions.
What's the source for that, Burl?
I have that. I don't have it written on me. It's from a study. And there's also an interview with the fellow, The Truth About False Confessions, which is on my show's website or on Spotify, True Crime Uncensored, called The Truth About False Confessions. And there are 1,000 a month that are recorded, recognized as such by people who, there are people who will confess to anything just because they're nuts. And there are those that they have to weed out. Is the person saying that for what reason? Is it because they were told, if you don't confess, we're going to pin your girlfriend? Or is it because they want the credit for the crime because they have some sort of criminal whatever? But it said that in LA County, there's 1,000 false confessions they have to weed through a month.
But I mean, I don't want to confuse the fact here. He wasn't sweated, and it's probably not necessarily a false confession. It's just that the full truth wasn't presented about the murder at trial.
Yeah. Well, for example,
and that's the key.
When they left the apartment, right? So when Jimmy left, he left after Mark did. He locked the bedroom door where Alex was laying on the bed, drunk and unconscious but breathing, he says. He locks the bedroom door behind him. Mark leaves. When cops finally go to the apartment, someone tried to get into that bedroom and got in by actually having to pull the door handle almost idly off the bedroom door because the bedroom door was locked. So someone broke into the bedroom door, which is when the configured timeline was when Mark called his attorney from the dead man's apartment on the dead man's phone. Jimmy wasn't there when he called his attorney from that phone. So, I mean, that was never brought up at trial because that gives a whole new, who was it that was breaking in on the bedroom door?
And who was in the room when, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so he doesn't, does he get in and find that the guy has died by himself from whatever injuries he received during, being put on the bed and knocked down and dragged? Or did he need some help expiring? And if so, who helped him? We don't know. We know from legally, he was found not guilty, just as OJ was found not guilty. But if you ask Frank, did OJ do it? What'd you say, Frank?
Well, I mean, I was there, and when it was at the OJ trial, and I had to write, a story for my newspaper on the day that the jury came back with their verdict. And to get ahead of the game, I wrote the story and said that OJ was guilty. And when the verdict came back, I was like, holy crap, I got to change this really quick because
you got to edit, right?
If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and showcasing this. The book again, and I'll have a link for that in today's show notes. It's Where Murder Lies: Death Deception in West Hollywood. I have my guest Burl Bear and Frank. How do you pronounce your last name again? I keep forgetting. My Minnesota mouth wants to say it's Girardot, but it wants to say Girardot for some reason, because us Minnesotans, we do like our vowels. So it's like trying to say a name that it's more like a French or an Italian way. It's really hard for Minnesotans to grasp
I
it. But
gotcha.
yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on, guys. This was fascinating.
Our
I mean,
pleasure.
it's very convoluted, and I'd love to have you on again for a future book. Maybe you'll find another cold case that you guys can spend 6
that
years
would be, We'll
on.
be back in another 6 years. Yeah. But
Yeah.
we were being paid by the hour on this. We'd be better flipping burgers at Sonic.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. And until our next case, my armchair detectives, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay aware. I'll see you right here next week on Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot.